You should be able to hear me now. Let me know if you can't. Sorry about that. Here I am just talking out in the void, and I didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. But I think all my things are coming up like I'm talking now. So let me know if I'm not coming up. Okay. I think. All right. Good. Good. Okay. Well, I was blathering on. Oh boy. All right. So basically, let me go back. And I would blame it on a Monday, but it's Wednesday. So what am I going to do? Basically, I added these pictures. I added to the bottom of the map. I decided to put the name of the this hex has a little region name, and I decided to separate it from the priory just so it was clear that this is Bordley is the region and the priory is the place in the region. So there's that. What else did I do quickly? Yeah, I've just been adding a lot more to the investigating clues stuff. Basically, so talking about kind of what you can learn at the farm, that basically is a modest farmhouse. The attack was frenzied, and you can find a figurine of St. Wichtred. That's all stuff I had before. I've added some more stuff about kind of if you question the neighbors, they can confirm that Alfbert, who was the is the rogue acolyte type. He was lingering around the farmstead. The family was hardworking and kept to themselves. Winston wasn't happy and frequently bore the marks of accident or clumsiness. And this is kind of my call out to that he was abused. I'm trying to do it subtly, and it doesn't really matter if you don't get it, but that's kind of my cue to think about, why does a kid have all these marks of accident or clumsiness? It's that kind of thing, like, right, the kid who, I keep running into doors, and then you go like, that's kind of suspicious. Well, that's sort of what I'm getting at here. Some cold tea for the working man. I think I'm gonna, and then I'm just gonna change this language because I use that. And then finally, he was a loner, and he went increasingly often to Bordley. Then at the Priory, I added some details about the Fellowship, which is the name of the kind of religious order, small independent order. They maintain the traditions of Oxwine and keep the monument, which reads Harrow, which I keep misspelling Hallow. The Priory is modest, supported by small, well-tended gardens, and surrounded by sacred barrows. The canons of the Priory do not usually visit the villages outside of performing holy duties. And this is another kind of cue to just that it's unusual that Alfbert is hanging around the farm because they don't do that. Another says investigation plots in a small space is a challenge for write-up. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a challenge regardless, right? Because you just, it's kind of like yesterday when I was sort of going through it, there's always this question of, well, are they going to ask the questions? Or, because I'm not, this is something that ideally I would run, or if I could hand it off to someone else and run it. And in doing so, I wouldn't want it to just be like, well, you go to the place and they just give you this kind of like dump of everything. I'm hoping that there's some like, looking here, talking to them, whatever, right? At the same time, chance they don't ask the right question. So that's why you get this idea that you have to have clues everywhere, which I'm trying to have, but there's still the potential that they're going to miss something. But you kind of just got to kind of put your faith in the GM that they're going to be able to kind of roll with it, and maybe trying to put more procedure stuff is kind of beyond the scope because I'm trying to keep this to a really small kind of trifold like doc, so I don't have physical space to run into a whole bunch of stuff or put in a whole bunch of notes. We'll see at the end of it if I have space for a little something that I can throw in there. But yeah, it's I think and this one in particular, because this, as I said yesterday, and I'll reiterate, and I probably will make a note somewhere, this is not a combat-centric adventure. They can fight things. There's wandering creatures. There's random encounters in places, but there really is not very much that they must fight. You could potentially do everything you need to do by just going, investigating, talking to people, maybe being a bit lucky with your rolls and running away from stuff that is kind of beyond you. And this is kind of a low-level deal. So most stuff is going to be, and there's stuff in here that I'm leaving in here that's kind of, that could be rough, would definitely be rough. So, the emphasis is really not on, we're going to go in and fight everything. Well, you can, and you might have to well, you probably don't have to, but you can end up in a situation where the dice are against you and you're 30 feet away from something and it's faster than you. And it's like, shoot, we got to figure something out. But it means that hopefully everybody, and just, it depends on the group. Like when I was playing in, what was it, Rob Conley, I played in some of the games he ran. And his games, I really appreciated them. And it kind of opened my eyes to different things you could do in a con game situation, because he ran these things that were similar, not a little, it's kind of similar to this. They had a little bit more sort of set piece, kind of a little bit of set pieces to them, but basically you're given a mission and the map is kind of open to you. And it's like, all right, you need to find these bandits. And he'd point to he'd lay out the kind of, he would lay out sort of the map and say, if I use this example, it's like, okay, you're here. You know that the crime came from here. And we know that there's a guy who's, let's say, a person of interest, to use a modern phrase, came from here. Where do you want to go, right? And then you go, okay, we'll go, right? And you kind of go around. Now, obviously, this map has stuff on it that, at least this part here, I probably would want to maybe remove, at least the pyramid stuff. But you kind of get the idea. And then you have the freedom to go around and move. But it does mean that as a party, as a players, as a group, if you want to just go looking for trouble, you can. That won't really help you very much. And you could kind of fumble around also, you can. Or you can go and kind of do stuff. So I'm leaning into the, hey, go and do stuff. But I am always a little bit trepidatious of, man, am I giving enough stuff? Well, we'll just have to see. In any case, so we get this right up on the fellowship, right? They got, and I did want to give a little bit, because I'm giving very little physical description of the place. Even here, there's just very little, right? It's a modest priory. It's got some it's got some gardens surrounded by some barrows. You're going to fill in the rest. It's not ultimately the shape of the barrow or the shape of the priory, and its construction methods are not terribly important. I could probably even remove it from the farmstead, but I don't know. I felt like a little bit like, maybe I'd put in like it's stone or it's whatever. But you get sort of the basics, and then you can kind of fill it. And none of these buildings are really particularly weird. So I think whatever you picture in your brain for a medieval type priory, which would be kind of like a small monastery, that will work. And then you have the picture on the map. That's kind of another reason why I wanted to put some pictures on the map. So you get this rough picture on the map, but you sort of have that to kind of tell you what it's like. And then, so that's kind of, I'm hoping it's enough. Now, the other thing says, I like the style of play better than dungeon crawls most days. Yeah, just a different thing. And there'll be a little bit of a dungeon, but not really, because once you get to the pyramid and go into it, the pyramid's not about fighting people. It's about hopefully you can really, you get to the pyramid and there might be a little bit of a where do you go thing, but it's really all about, hopefully you got enough pieces of the puzzle to figure out the right thing to do. And even what the right thing is can be different. But like I mentioned, there's a demon in the pyramid, and the demon is right now inhabiting the body of Saint Witchred. That's kind of the kind of tropey thing I'm doing, right? The legend is wrong. The legend is wrong. In this case, the legend is wrong. Who's buried in Witchred's harrow? No one. It's empty. Which I said it again there, right? But because what Witchred did was he sacrificed himself to create this prison, kind of a living prison for the demon to be be into, so that they could sever the demon from his plane of origin, right? So when you get to the demon at the end, it's not so much can you kill the demon. I mean, yeah, I'll give him some hit point stuff, but it's not really what it's about. Like, yes, you could kill the demon, because you're not really killing the demon, you're killing the demon's host, who is now who was an old wizard at the time, who's now kind of really old, doesn't have any spells or anything really memorized. The demons give him a little juice, but really other than that, he's kind of pretty much a normal man, maybe a little bit plus. I don't know. I'll see when I get to stats wise, but it's not really the big fight. The thing is, it's like, well, what do you do? Because what the demon's trying to do is get a hold of the boy to be this kind of new amped up kind of host. That's kind of what's happening. Like the boy is susceptible enough. And I was going to say that they've already done some kind of ritual to give the boy some like demonic kind of gift, which is what I'm hinting at with the crime scene being like all kinds of ripped apart. And that there's this connection already, and the demon wants to hop in, and that the boy is free of the prison and stuff, free. So He's free. If you stop the so there's a couple things when you get to the demon, and I just have to kind of lay out what they are, but really what they do is up to the party. Is okay, you stop the demon, you get there, or you do whatever you could prevent the demon from hopping into the boy. Okay, great. That's one thing, because if he hops into the boy, then you've got this demon loose in a new body, and now he'll be free of the prison, and he'll be ready to unleash havoc. But it is really just more adventure in terms of kind of like, well, it's like the game over. It's like, no, it's now you got this demon on the loose, and who knows what that demon wants to do or what their plan is, and so you've now set loose your own big bad evil guy that you get to go and try to take out as a party. So you could stop that from happening, which obviously would be good. That would be the worst in terms of how the future looks. That's the worst one. You could, if you stop that part, then you still have the demon is trapped in the wizard's body, who's also trapped in this. I don't know if it's going to be a demi-plane or just something that's very warded where they can't get out. The wards are failing, though, which is why the demon's able to send his whispers out, but it's still holding in terms of not letting the demon out. So then your choices are, do we try to seal this up, again, more adventures. We could try to reseal the thing up. Like, what do we need to do to get the seal done or do something more permanently or whatever? That would be one thing, which is not in the scope of this, but that would be, okay, yeah, you can do that. Or you could kill the demon. If you kill the demon in the very short term, that's going to seem the best, because the whispers will stop. But now the demon's on its home plane, and now it won't be here, and it'll have to find new things. The boy, if they don't kill the boy is still this kind of tether that'll be there. So I'll have to make a note about that. But the other thing is now, though, the demon's back home and gets to do it. Because the whole idea of putting him in this sort of jail was to take him off the board while while the sort of spells and the wards were holding. The demon was off the board. He wasn't down in hell making mischief or making plans, and he wasn't in the prime plane basically doing stuff. He's off the board. So if you send him back down to wherever he comes from, then yes, in the short term, things are stopping. In the long term or medium term, maybe he's probably coming back, and might vengeance might be on their mind. We'll see. Now, nothing says the plot line for this product is A+. Well, thanks. I mean, I don't even know if there's really much of a plot line, right? I just putting a bunch of stuff out there, and just trying to give some options. But now, so the key is really, in terms of the adventure, is what you're doing at the party is you're trying to put together all these bits of information. And I'm just trying. And what I was doing today was basically going through and just trying to add more stuff. So I added the stuff about okay, now we get a little bit of background on the Priory, if you want to know kind of a little bit of what it looks like, and just kind of, if you're thinking like, well, who are the guy? Who is or what is the Fellowship of Bordley or the Bordley Prior? Well, now you know. They keep the traditions, they do holy duties, deaths, funerals, bar mitzvahs, that kind of thing. They keep to themselves, right? Or they're supposed to. They're pretty much only supposed to go out to do stuff, and then they come back here. And that's why it's remarkable, or at least notable, that this guy, the rogue acolyte, was kind of wandering around, because they're not supposed to do that. And then you can talk to the prior, whose name is Dunstan, and they'll confirm. So now I set up some factoids that he can confirm. He can confirm that until recently they were a very promising canon. With canon, like an acolyte, just someone who's, I kind of liked, I was looking up, words for different kind of folks who are part of an order, and canon was one of them, and I liked it, so I'm using it. They were very promising canon, acolyte, student, initiate, and whatever. Their interest that become an obsession was the hagiography of St. Witchred, that is the stories and writings and things that sort of laid out the life and I guess great works, if you will, of the saint, which is important because, what's written down is a lie. So, or it's not completely accurate. It may be some errors of omission or whatnot. The adventuring situation. Yes. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. I think with the right group, I think it could be a lot of fun. I think with other groups, they might feel, I don't know if people will feel like there's too much talky and not enough fighty. I mean, which is, it's possible, but again, some of that's going to be the dice as they're running around, because there are wandering encounters, but, And once they get into the wastes, the encounters get harder and there's more sort of stuff. But again, they're low level, so they probably don't want to fight the stuff that's in the wastes. It's kind of bad news, but they can. So all right, so you can get from the prior that hey, this was a promising young student, canon, initiate, whatever you want to call them, but they were interested and then becoming obsessed in sort of the writings, the sort of legend and the writings around the legend of Saint Wihtred. I'm going to change the wording here, but basically they were working at the Harrow, so their duties were at the monument, and then they became convinced they were receiving urgent visions from the saint, and then they were becoming agitated and violent, and then they finally fled after they were confronted. And and then that's where he pops up in the village, and then and that kind of around the farmstead, then he disappears. So if you go and you talk to the other canons, they can reveal that he was obsessed with Wihtred's Harrow, the monument, also something he's calling hidden histories and a terrible secret. The hidden histories meaning the true story. So not what the legends or not what the tales say about Saint Wihtred, but really what happened to Saint Wihtred. And then the terrible secret, the secret being that the wizard's not buried at Wihtred's Harrow. That's kind of the terrible secret, that the tomb is a lie, like that old. Well, I think in the case of Grant's tomb, Grant is buried at Grant's tomb, but in New York City, the Grant's tomb is, I guess, on the Upper West Side, and there's always thinking of who's buried at Grant's tomb, and it's it's Grant, but kind of that idea that maybe nobody, or is there somebody else buried there? In this case, who's buried at Wihtred's Harrow? The answer is nobody. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tunnel that leads from like the sarcophagus actually has stairs that go down a tunnel that leads you in a little bit of a shortcut through the. So if we come over here, here's the Harrow. That these are all this like cracked, like this kind of crazy, broken lands, and all this kind of stuff is billowing out. That's nasty. But the idea is that there's a secret path or tunnel that leads down into kind of a deeper sort of canyon thing here that kind of puts you below the billowing smoke stuff and then can kind of help you get there. I don't know how my idea is that there'll be some hints that the sarcophagus was messed with, but that's really going to be on the party to convince or force the custodian to let them wedge open the sarcophagus, because it's not going to be obvious, but it will be something that will be there. And if they do that, that's another way to help them shortcut a bit the waste, the danger in the wastes, because it is dangerous. The smoke, if you fail saves, it does bad things to you, and there's kind of nasty things running around there. Okay, so this is what the fellow students can tell you. So the hidden history is terrible secret, that he was receiving frequent visits from a quote boy from the village, which is of course is Alfbert. So there's another connection. They didn't know the kid's name, but obviously I think when you get to the point where you're, really even if you come here first, it's going to be pretty clear there's only kind of one boy in the village from the village that has any import, and that would make sense. Okay. And also they had been arguing loudly with Godwin, custodian of the Harrow, of course, because Godwin doesn't want to hear about hidden histories and terrible secrets that the Harrow is a lie. And of course, if you go and you search his quarters, he slept in a simple cell in the common dormitory. Under their bed, scratched into the stone masonry, is the phrase, "The Harrow is a lie," several times in increasingly frenzied script. Again, the Harrow is a lie, and this is the thing, like, I don't know, no way of knowing how much of this people are going to interact with. They might not go. All this stuff is there, and then hopefully it will reward people who are like, hey, let's go search. Shouldn't we go search can we search his stuff? And yeah, he doesn't have much, but you could search what he's got, and then that will allow you to discover. Let me turn that off. That will allow you to discover some stuff. But it's part of it is I'm sort of I'm just kind of, I just got to, and that's this thing I think when you're embracing, I guess, or living with the fact as writing an adventure or putting something down that is going to be run by somebody else that, yeah, or, you can't force them to do that. But if they do the stuff, the, they'll get some clues. Now, okay, so I had some, the kind of my next thing I was getting into that I didn't get to finish before was Wichtred's Harrow. So let's see. So the idea is, okay, so now we've done these. So we've got, I think, we got the Priory. Yeah, we've got this stuff now at the Harrow itself. So, I keep changing his name accidentally. Oh no, Windstand, right? That's him, right? Windstand, yeah, Windstand, not Winstead, Windstand. Okay, so Windstand had been visiting here regularly. I'll have to reformat these later, but he'd been visiting regularly. Regularly speaking with Alfbert, right? So we got that. So it's more clarity, or hopefully just more reinforcement. Yeah, these two were kind of, I don't want to say in cahoots, but they were definitely working together. Is not necessarily the right word, but they had a relationship. They were linked. They were linked together. Let's see. Alfbert had been studying several murals and claimed to see hidden messages within them. I'm kind of going off the top of my head now. I'm not sure. I'm trying to lead. So I guess it's probably good. I wish I had a piece of. You know what? It'd be great if you had sort of a piece of like there's probably is an app that like, can I just put like a sticky note here on the screen? The things that I need or I kind of need the players to figure out. I need to lead them to the fact that, hey, there's the pyramid. The pyramid is not. The pyramid is. It's not well known. That's kind of right. It was made to be sort of a prison. It's kind of one of these ideas, I think, a little bit. Though I sort of got here unintentionally. They always have you see these things where they'll talk about how. Like, what do you do when you want to say you want to hide? You need to bury nuclear waste. What do you do to the site? How do you prepare the site so that 1,000 years from now, when that nuclear waste is still dangerously toxic, that a culture who may be far removed from you shows up there? Like what kind of signage, what kind of symbols, what kind of things can you do to tell them don't open those barrels. Those barrels, they may look enticing. Don't open. Don't go down there. Don't go down this hole. Don't right. And you think, and there's some talk about, well, what kind of symbology seems like maybe that just it works on a human mind, so that if we have a Thundar the Barbarian future, but that those nuclear waste barrels or whatever are still the rods buried and are still kind of intact, but we want to stop Thundar and his friends from digging them up. Like, what do you do there that someone who's Thundar, who doesn't know anything about our world, but still is relatively mostly essentially human, what can you do? In the case here is they kind of created this environment, so all around it is these billowing nastiness so that people stay out. That's kind of the thing. Like they made this sort of do not enter, and it's bad. And one of the effects of these fumes is that if you fail your save, and then I forget what else happens to you, but basically you can't see the pyramid. So if you're walking through here and you get this smoke in your eyes and you end up entering into the middle hex, you can't see. The pyramid's hidden from you. And you have to rest, I think, 8 hours for it to wear off. Obviously, outside of it, you got to let it wear off for 8 hours, or you use a cure, some kind of healing spell. So that's a pretty good deterrent to keep people out, because you don't want people mucking around. It's just gonna end badly. There's nothing good that can come from people going around and trying to monkey with the pyramid. So this is kind of like a pretty effective stay the heck out of here. Nothing good is going to be here. But what I need to do from a meta perspective is this is where the party needs to go. They need to understand that this is where Alfbert and the kid went, that they went in here. And part of my idea was that there were two things I was thinking about in terms of how the acolyte and the boy made it through. One is that the demons kind of empowered them so that they're not subject to the smoke. That was one way. But the way I think I like better is that they actually took that tunnel. That Alfbert figured out that the tomb isn't real, got it open, and maybe that's what happened originally. If you want to think about, he's becoming obsessed. If we kind of think about the history, right? He's becoming obsessed with the story of St. Wichtred, which he's uncovering, and maybe there's some influence of the demon there. The Whisper's working on him. He's working the tomb, so there's probably some times where he basically has it to himself after hours. Maybe he's got access, so he sneaks in there and he kind of wedges it open a little bit, and then he looks inside and there's no body and there's stairs going down. So they go down, they end up in the sort of one of these canyons, and they end up at the pyramid, and then that's when they go into the pyramid and they are confronted by the demon, who maybe that's when he puts the big kind of makes him into the Renfield type. Like he's been sort of whispered to, but then he got Renfield eyed. Is it Renfield or Renfell? I think it's Renfield. Gets Renfielded, and then like, okay, master, and then he's off doing his thing. So I kind of like that more than them. And plus the idea, it's just, I think I like the fact that it's a good, and it's a plus and a minus, because by having them take the tunnel, there's not going to be any traces of them heading into the wastes. So that's a clue that then goes by the wayside. So it means it's more, it means of even greater import that that at the Harrow or somewhere else, or preferably in multiple places, there's some kind of pointing to it. So what I'm thinking, with getting back to the mural, is that, and maybe I need to write this, because I really, with the constraints of the page, I really need to be concise, and I'll probably have to move this over maybe down here so that I have more space. Is that you can see that the mural was sort of painted over, that it was redone. Somebody redid, at some point, somebody decided to hide the original messaging. I'm just pouring myself a little bit more of this cold tea that I've got. It's been sitting here all day, and I'm finally getting around to drinking it. That originally the messaging was more clear. It wasn't Wichtred's or the original group. It wasn't their idea to hide it, but then somewhere along the way, someone decided, like, you know what? We need to hide it. Okay, I don't need the. There we go. All right, so Winston had been visiting regularly, speaking with Alfbert. Yeah, let me make a note. I know, I gotta fix this really quick. So, gone when Yeah, I just need to undo the italics because it's not italics. So Godwin, the Harrow Custodian. I can reveal. There we go. All right, so he can reveal these things. That Winston had been visiting regularly, speaking with Alfbert. Alfbert had been studying several murals and claimed to see hidden messages within them. Alfbert became increasingly, let's see, what is it? What did he become? Increasingly, basically, he was, that he was, that he's increasingly outlandish, I guess, or more, basically just that he's, his idea, he was just getting more and more kind of, I don't even know what the word, increasingly harrowing, yeah, something like that. I guess disturbed. Something like that. Now I can make another one of these about the murals. If examined closely, and I think maybe I'm trying to think about, because if examined closely, you'll be able to see that it's faintly that the current, I guess, mural is painted over maybe a very faint bas relief. And I'm wondering the reason why maybe Godwin and some of these other folks aren't interested, but I think maybe it's kind of one of those things, you're just not thinking about it anymore. You're just going like, it's that they repainted, and I don't, what, you're so used to it, you can't, maybe that's kind of part of if there's kind of a tragic aspect to this, is that there were signs that things were not quite right, and they just were glossed over. Like, they repainted it, such and such happened, whatever, and they blah blah blah, right? They did something like that. I'm wondering, I should probably maybe take a quick look. I'm just curious, not that I want to make it dependent on you having a spell, but I'm wondering if there's any spells that could be helpful for this. The Priory would not be casting spells in here. That would definitely be kind of verboten to them. You just don't do it, all right? So maybe detect magic. Let's see. This spell determines there's an enchantment laid upon a person, place, or thing, causing any item to glow. Several. Okay, it's useful to discover some item is magical if a door has been magically held or wizard locked. All right. So what would be the spell? What would be the spell that might have been used on this? Read no. Shield, invisibility, knock. No. Mirror image, phantasmal force. No. Croco says, how do you handle situations like examine closely? Players have to say they are inspecting, 1 in 6 chance to detect or something else. I would just, if the players say they're examining closely, then they're going to get it. Especially when you're running kind of a mystery. You don't want to, this is information that they need, right? This is kind of that idea, like you see, like when people are talking about dungeons and they'll say, if you need to get past this door to the dungeon, or there's like a barrier between you and what you need to do to progress, not to put something where you just like fail outright. That's where, so here I would never want to have it be a 1 in 6 chance especially if they've said what they need to say, which is basically, I want to examine the mural closely and then roll dice, because the problem would be is I need them. I'm trying to put it in multiple places, but really ideally I need them to find these clues, just on a meta level. So me gating, if they've taken the right moves and I gate it behind rolls, there's a chance nobody makes their roll, in which case, like, nope, sorry, I don't see anything. And then it's kind of like, well, what do you do? Now it's a dead end. So I wouldn't want to do that. Now, you could certainly just roll some D6s for everybody in the party, maybe as the GM, or you could ask everybody, hey, roll D6 and let me know if you get a 6. And if you do, you could reveal it that you kind of see it. You're an outsider. You're not used to being there. So maybe you see things with kind of fresh eyes that they don't see. And you're like, hey, something's whatever. Like that would totally be something to do. Because if you have 5 or 6 people, there's a good chance that just on that, someone will roll a 6. It's a pretty good chance. But I wouldn't be the whole thing. If someone says, like, I'm looking closely at the murals, I'm giving it to them. Full stop. Okay, what other spells do we have here? Now, Witchard was a wizard, so though he was dead, but someone else, another wizard, could hold. So I'm not necessarily only thinking clerical spells, and I can go to the expert book to get some more spells. But I'm just curious. Here we've got. Well, let's see. Did I pass already by? Fly, fireball, dispel magic, wizard lock. No, whole person. Nah. ESPN. Nah. Mirror image. Nah. None of these are particularly. There just might not be a good spell. Let me see. Charm, no. Detect. I mean, detect would work good for the seeing it, but not what the spell might be. Floating disc. I could just say it's a miscellaneous enchantment. I'm just curious if there's a spell so I could add that in, so I can just use it. Light, magic missile, no. Protect from evil, no. Shield, no. No. I'll check expert just in case could be a spell, but I'm not thinking there's gonna be one. So we've got, let's see. Bless, find traps, no align, a whole person. No. Locate, remove, no. No. Commune, no. Quest, raise dead, no. Spell evil, no. And then magic users. Oh, clairvoyance, no. Infravision, no. Charm, confusion, dimension door, growth of plants, hallucinatory, terrain, mass more. Nothing particularly wonders here. Animate dead, cloud kill, no. Pass wall, no. Magic jar, no. Teleport, no. Wall of stone, no. Rock to mud, no. And then finally, anti-magic shell, no. I don't think there's anything really. No. All right, so it'll just have to be an enchantment. Maybe. I don't know, because then if it's enchanted, why did the party? Now maybe it'll just be Monday. I think that's probably the best. It'll just be a bit of a mundanity. I think, okay, if examined closely, the faintest traces of an underlying bas relief can be, if examined closely, can be seen. The bas relief shows the wastelands beyond Boardley and a step pyramid within the wastes. And I'll probably rewrite this so that it's a bit, because it'll be like there's like a procession kind of things, or I guess shows a procession from Boardley through the wastes And that's where if I could find a drawing, I might draw it. Oh, I didn't know that bas reliefs could also be called low reliefs. Interesting. I did not know that. I don't know. I wonder which one would be more well known. So the murals, if examined closely, the faintest traces of an underlying bas relief can be seen. The relief shows a procession. Relief shows an Witrid leading a procession from Borderly through the waist to a step pyramid. The saint leads a hunched figure bound by a collar and rope before him. All right, so there we get a little bit more little added detail. Examine closely, the faintest traces of an underlying bas relief can be seen. The relief shows Witrid leading a procession from Borderly through the wastes to a step pyramid. The saint leads a hunched figure bound by a collar and leash before him. Okay. So that should be some hinting. I'm going to need more space. I'm wondering where I should go. What is this? Should I? All right, I got to do some maneuvering maybe. All right, I'm not going to worry about that right yet. I'm just going to. Okay, so that's that element of it. And then finally, whoops. Witrid's tomb, a massive stone sarcophagus without free of decoration or inscription. A close look at the lid will show signs of, will show a few cracks and chips. All right, a close, so I'm trying to basically get at that maybe that it's been monkeyed with a bit. Witrid's tomb, a massive stone sarcophagus free of decoration or inscription. A close look at the lid will show a few cracks and chips. Cracks and chipped edges. Signs of prying. Oh, chipped edges, a small amount of stone dust. Sits beneath one corner. It would be Croc, it would be from the outside. So you may have missed it. So the idea here, what I'm going with right now, is that to answer the question of, well, how did the kid? So I had mentioned this earlier, but I'll go through it again, and then I'll probably wind it down. So the idea here is that, okay, Witchred's Harrow is supposed to be the tomb of the wizard. The same Witchred. The thing that the acolyte discovered is that there's nobody in the tomb. Tomb is empty. That's the lie. He's been raving about this. It's a lie. It's all a lie. And he's correct. Yeah, there is a bit of a lie. Yes. Nobody in the tomb. But what is in the tomb is a stairs that leads down to a tunnel that leads into a canyon that kind of shortcuts you through the pyramid. So the idea here is that he figured this stuff out, and then after committing the murder, hustled the kid before anyone was really looking. Maybe they went kind of a roundabout way, got in here. Maybe they waited till nightfall, got around here, and then got in, wedged open the thing, creating the little bits you see, and then kind of got it closed behind them. And then they made their way to the pyramid, or still making their way to the pyramid. So the idea here is it was opened from outside. Now, I suppose there's no telling somebody could mistake it for being open from the inside. But again, that doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter so much, because assuming that if you've determined that the thing's been monkeyed with, that gives you a reason or excuse or whatever to open it. And then opening it will reveal kind of what needs to be revealed. Now, of course, this is not a gimme, because it is very possible, likely, that the custodian's not going to want you to do that. So, ain't going to want you to do it. So there's a question. All right, someone's knocking at the door, which I believe is my daughter, so I got a jet. So I will keep working on this. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry about the issues with the sound. I'll try to trim that later in YouTube so that if somebody comes back and watches the stream, there's not 10 minutes of me talking to myself. But anyhow, that's all I got for now, folks. Have a great evening, or whenever you end up watching or listening to this, game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.